You're listening to Rise Up, Stories of Recovery, Resilience, and Renewal with Matthew Tobe.
All right, welcome. My name is Matt Tobe, and this is Rise Up, Stories of Recovery, Renewal, and Resilience. This is my guest, Kevin Hines. Kevin, I have been following you for years. As I just told you, you have a remarkable story. We know that. So I wanted to have you on because we know how we all need a little bit of help here and there, a lot sometimes. And your story is one that's remarkable. And I want to share that with my listeners and my viewers and see how we can help anybody. If we can help just one person, we've helped enough, right? So I just wanted to get your story and see how, what you can relay from what you've experienced and everything else to our listeners and help out, whether it's themselves or their children or family or friends. So Kevin, the floor is yours, man. The mic is yours. Introduce yourself and let's see what we got.
Well, thank you, Matt. And it's great to be on here with you. I really appreciate the invite. Listen, I've had a heck of a journey from a traumatic infancy where I was fed Kool-Aid, Coca-Cola, and sour milk, what my parents could steal, to losing my only full-blooded brother in the foster care system to the same disease. We both had bronchitis at the same time, and then he died and I lived. That immediate onslaught of trauma led me to have a very catastrophic response, and I became very ill. And I ended up getting lucky. Unlike my poor brother, I got into a great foster home, Pat and Debbie Hines, who saved my life. And the first 30 days, I was violently ill all day, every day. And they would have to take me back and forth to the doctors, and they'd have to do all these tests, a literal $1 million workup for an infant pre-verbal, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And they didn't have the science back then that we have today about gut to brain health. Because my birth parents were like feeding me Kool-Aid, Coca-Cola, sour milk. It was damaging my brain at the cellular level. I was by definition mentally ill from the very beginning. Okay, so you fast forward. I get into this great home. Pat and Debbie Hines adopt me. They make me their son. They are my mom and dad, and life is great. They work tirelessly to give us a world that we never had. They adopted 3 kids from 3 different families who had nothing and no one. And they saved our lives. And even though all 3 of us would be given this great gift by Pat and Debbie of just a wonderful home and a wonderful family, each of us, all 3 of us kids would end up in a psych ward 3 times before we were all 30 years of age.
Wow. Because
of our brains. So let's go ahead. So you fast forward, and at 19, I attempt to take my life in a way that is 99.9% fatal. I leap off the Golden Gate Bridge. And I say the truth about that because there's a school of thought that if you talk about the method, you're going to lead someone to take that method.
Right.
That's been disproven. How are we going to stop suicides at the Golden Gate Bridge forever if we don't talk about the method?
Of course.
How are we going to stop and use reduction of access to lethal means on the most prime suicide spot in the world if we don't understand what's happening there and tell the truth about it? So, I go at 19 and I do attempt off the Golden Gate Bridge, and it at the time it was the single worst action I've ever made. And I was telling myself the greatest lie I've ever told myself. And that lie was that nobody cares.
Right.
The greatest lie I ever told myself. Nobody cares. And I would later learn that everybody cared. When I travel around the world and I say, how many of you in this audience had you seen me, 19-year-old young me, standing atop the Golden Gate Bridge walkway, leaning over that 4-foot-nothing rail, ease of access to lethal means, crying profusely my tears to the waters below? How many in this audience would have cared? And everywhere I go, nearly everyone raises their hands. It's an incredible show of support. Just to show people that even though we don't think people care, that's not entirely accurate.
Right.
So you get to that point. So I leap off the Golden Gate Bridge. Obviously, I survive. a little sea lion keeps me afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrives behind me. The Coast Guard boat arrives. These officers who are wonderful pull me to the boat. They put me in a neck brace. They strap me from head to toe, and they start asking very serious questions.
Right.
They are shocked that I'm still alive as the mangled bodies they pull out of those waters. And one of them looks at me.
Survive that.
Well, I'll tell you, one of them looks at me and says, young man, do you understand how many people we pull out of these waters are already gone? I said, no, and I don't want to know. They said, we're going to tell you anyway. They said, this year alone, has pulled out 26 dead bodies from these waters and only one live one, you. That gave me the greatest point of perspective I've ever received in my life. And I knew I needed to fight my pain every time for the rest of my life, no matter how suicidal I get, and never attempt again. They say the bridge directorate would like you to believe that 1,800 people have died off the Golden Gate Bridge. That number is about 30 years old. The reality is, for all the bodies washed away to sea, all the bodies eaten by fish to the bone, which happens, all the bodies mangled that never are found, when they find one body part but not the rest of it, because when you hit that water, it's like hitting glass. It'll sever your limbs. They don't count you.
Wow.
The number is more like, in my opinion, 2,000, 3,000 or higher. But very few people are willing to publish that because they want to stick with the official numbers. Well, the official numbers are a goddamn lie.
Right.
They're a lie.
And why do you think they don't want to give those other numbers?
Because if people knew the sincere severity of what was going on there, action would be taken much faster.
Right.
Now, we fought for 22 years to raise a net at the Golden Gate Bridge. It's going up right now. It will likely be complete in December of this year. And finally, not one more person will ever again die off the Golden Gate Bridge, and it will become the largest, brightest, and most powerful beacon for suicide prevention right around the world.
That's amazing.
Now, a small group of like-minded people got together and said no more. It took 22 years. And there were some people in that group who fought for 30 years. One of them passed away fighting for it. You know, so this is a journey that is going to lead to a sincere change in San Francisco's culture. And for all the people that said, oh, they'll just go somewhere else, it ruins the aesthetics of the bridge. What are the aesthetics of a bridge compared to one human life?
Right.
That's someone's brother and sister, mother or father, sister, family, friend, fiance, loved one. That person mattered to people. You know, and for the idea that they just go somewhere else, that's been disproven over and over again. If you build a bridge next to the Golden Gate Bridge with a 4-foot rail, sure, they'll go there. Absolutely. Right. But if you reduce access to lethal means all around the city, if railways are more safe at BART, pardon me, pardon me.
Sorry.
If railways are more safe at BART, if tall buildings have barriers, suicides will actually drop. We know that reducing access to lethal means is one of the most proven ways to save lives. We know it.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, this has become my journey, my path. And I'm just a cog in the wheel. I'm a speck in the sand trying to make a tiny bit of difference. And I get the honor to now today travel around the world, as I did yesterday. I was in Fairfield, Texas yesterday at Fairfield High School. And I gave a keynote to the students there. And several of them said how it affected and helped them stay well. And many of them wrote to me afterwards and said how it hit them really hard and made a difference in their lives. And that's a blessing.
Absolutely.
Because I wasn't supposed to be here. Yesterday's keynote almost didn't happen, right?
Right. So in the years since, how do we, all that you've talked about, all that you've learned, all that you've seen, what are some of the things that could have maybe have changed your situation initially? And then what can we do to help out parents and kids, because, like I said, like I have my own son who would turn to me at one point in time, and my wife, and said, he's struggling, and we were lucky. And I know that we were lucky in the fact that we have a child at the age of 16 who communicated with us. And we've been told every step of the way, you guys lucked in on that one, right? The fact that he was verbal and talkative to you. So what have you learned? Like, what could have maybe have stopped you at that point in time? And what can we help other parents with and kids with to learn and make these changes?
So to the parents out there watching and listening to this right now, and to the not just the parents, but the teachers and the counselors and the school staff, you have to have the brain and mental health conversation, and you have to have the suicide prevention conversation before it even comes up. You have to have it on a regular basis. It has to be at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table of all your forethought conversations, because it is so prevalent in today's society, not just in America, but all around the world. Mm-hmm. So we have to be bold enough to say, okay, I'm not gonna hold back. I'm not gonna pretend this couldn't happen to my child. I'm not gonna pretend this couldn't happen to one of my students. I'm gonna go in and look at this like it could happen to every child. It could happen to every student.
Right.
And with that, you have the opportunity to go to someone and say, hey, let's have a conversation about your brain health today. You hear me say brain health a lot because I don't really like the term mental health. Mental has a negative connotation to the word all by itself.
Yeah.
Who in their right mind wants to be labeled mental for the rest of their lives? Nobody I know, right? And so this is a brain issue. This is a brain health issue and a body health issue. It's a symbiotic connection between the two. If you're eating inflammatory foods every day for all of your life, you're damaging your brain at the cellular level and your brain's functionality, and you're causing symptoms of mental illness. That's a fact. But let's call it what it is. It's brain pain, brain diseases, and brain illnesses. And so once we understand that, we can move forward and say, okay, let's talk about your brain health. Let's talk about what you're dealing with at school. Let's talk about who you're being bullied by, if that's happening. Let's talk about what you're feeling about your thoughts on life and living. Have you ever had thoughts of taking your life? Have you ever had thoughts of killing yourself? Have you made plans to take your life? Do you have the means? Those questions lead to a more honest answer than the question, are you thinking about suicide, or the question, are you thinking about self-harm? Because by definition, self-harm is not suicide, it's self-harm.
Right.
And the term suicide has a very taboo basis to it already. Nobody wants to answer that question. But if you ask, are you thinking of killing yourself or taking your life? People are more prone to answer that question truthfully. So you have to have the conversation at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table everywhere you go on a regular basis if you are going to effectively stop someone who is considering from taking their lives.
Right. Which we don't often see. We don't know because we don't often see the signs and symptoms.
Well, that's why you have to talk to the strong kids, the kids who seem fine, the kids who are the valedictorians and the football, champions, or the right quarterback, or the star wrestler, the star volleyball player. You have to talk to them and see how they're really going. Because if we are going to sit here and lie to ourselves and say it couldn't happen to my kid, we're in complete denial of reality.
Right. And so so having the conversation. So I actually posted a little while ago one of those 3 questions that you say we need to ask. And somebody actually made a comment saying, if somebody asked me if I have the means, I probably, when I was at, and they said they were at that state where they were thinking of it, they would have lied.
Yeah.
So do we just keep that conversation going and just really make
you don't accept the first answer.
Right.
You dig. Because statistically, they're more likely to tell you the truth when you ask those 3 questions. But if they lie, or if you think they're lying, if you have the tiniest inclination that they're misleading you,
right,
you say, hold on. I know you're going through it. Tell me the truth. Are you planning, and do you have a way to do this?
Right.
Because I'm here for you right now. I care about you, or I love you, and I want you to be here tomorrow. And I want to help you get there. If part of your worry is that you feel alone, I'm standing right here. I'm not leaving until I know you're safe. What do you need from me? What do you need from me? It's not always what we say to people. Not everybody needs advice.
Right.
Sometimes they just need someone to sit by them, put their hand over their shoulder, and just listen to understand, not to respond. The true listening, and to show people in pain that their backs are held.
Right.
I think there's far too many people who fear asking those questions, and then something terrible happens.
Right.
You were lucky that your son came to you and said he was feeling those thoughts.
Oh, we know that, and that was.
You know that, yeah.
And I think part of it was, like I said, like your story has resonated with me ever since I read about it years and years ago. And I think one of the things that, when you first were no longer part of the Golden Gate Bridge, when you had leapt off, one of the first thoughts that came to your mind was what? Instantaneous
regret.
Right.
And this absolute recognition, I just made the greatest mistake of my life, and it was too late.
Right. And I will tell you, I believe that in our family, in our household, we had that conversation, much like you said, like not as directly as that, but just in general, when they're feeling down, or if we saw a show or heard about somebody else taking their own life, I would think, I read this story years ago, this guy who jumped out, and it was your story. And I would say that the one thing that they were, the second they were no longer literally part of the earth, they were no longer attached to anything. I said, this gentleman's first thought was, I don't want to do this, right? I don't want to die. This is regret. And that was, I think, part of it. Like you became part of the fabric, your story became part of the fabric of what we would talk about to make it okay to have that conversation in our house, to make those, those lines of communication that we don't, no matter how bad things get, and we've all had moments, I don't think there's a single person out there who hasn't thought of it at one point in time in their life, right? To what degree they take it. So you had that feeling of full regret, and then, by the grace of God, like really, like every step since then, saved you. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about the steps that keep me sane, because we can't just come on here and talk about the pain and not talk about a resolution or a solution, right?
Absolutely.
So I follow a 10-step regimen that I built over time to balance my brain health. And I'll give you three of them. I'll give you the 3 E's: education, exercise, eating healthily. So educating myself as to my diagnosis, and educating the people around me who love me about my diagnosis so we can fight it together. Eating healthily, eating anti-inflammatory foods that affect my brain in a positive way for the most part. I don't restrict my meals. I have the stuff that's bad for your brain. I have the stuff that's bad for your gut. I just don't have it every day. Right. So educating, exercise. So exercise is the third one. I am physically capable. So many people around the world are not and don't get the privilege to be. We are lucky if we are. If you are physically capable, get to the ground and get to work. Meaning exercise that body to feed that mind. Forget about getting those six-pack abs. That's not what it's about. Although so many people are focused on that. But those people have disordered eating just all by themselves. So let's focus on eating for brain health, or exercise for brain health, or both. So when you work out for 23 minutes a day, rigorous exercise with very few breaks, you are allowing your brain to have 12 hours of better mood. 23 minutes of exercise, 12 hours of better mood. You do that twice a day like I do, 24 hours of better mood. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that, right? So those are the 3 E's. You can find the rest of my 10-step program at youtube.com/Kevin Hines at The Art of Wellness 2.0 is the name of the video. The Art of Wellness 2.0. Thousands of people are following this program all around the world, from Peru to Africa to China, Japan, Canada, UK, Ireland, and beyond. And they are saying that in 6 to 9 months, they see a dramatic improvement in their brain health. Now, here's the deal. Nobody wants to do the work. Everybody wants the Uberification of their wellness right now. Let me take that one pill. Let me get that one hack. Let me do this one thing, and I'll solve all my problems. That's not how it works. If you have a diagnosed brain disease, what we call a mental illness, You have to fight that thing tooth and nail till the ends of the earth. Accept that so you can finally move forward. But then put in the work for your mind, brain, and body to change. I've been putting in the work for years. Do I fall off? Do I fall off my treatment plan and go right back into a psych ward sometimes? Yes. The last one was 2019 pre-pandemic, right back into a psych ward for going off my meds. What a mistake. But I learned from it.
Right.
And I've not been back to a psych ward since 2019. And that's amazing for me. 10 psych ward stays in the last, 22 years. And my last one haven't been back there for 4 years. It's incredible.
Great. That's great.
And the way I do that is by following a routine and a regimen that works. Now, everyone's different. I recognize that. All right. I'm not here to sound like any elitist and be like, I do this so you can do it too and you're going to save your life. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is the tools and techniques I utilize in the Art of Wellness 2.0 found on that channel on YouTube, those tools are science-backed, evidence-informed, proven to change your brain. So why not try? Why not try? Why not go for it? See what happens, right? It can only do good for your life.
Well, that's it. Whether it helps you in that regard, it's going to help you somewhere else. Moving. I mean, by trade, I'm a personal trainer, so I'm all into the healthy aspect of it. Eating the proper foods. I mean, we know that we're not eating. If it comes in a box on the outside, on the inside of the store, it's not healthy for us.
Right.
Right.
A box of plastic packaging, not healthy. No.
Right. And again, it's not like we don't have it. We do have it in our house. It's part of life. We enjoy it here and there.
Yeah.
But it's in everything else that we know. Especially, and I know the cost behind things like organic is not always easy for everybody.
Right.
But, foods that we can have that are designed for us to thrive, not just survive. And, eating something that grows from the ground.
Well, look, there are food deserts all over America where people do not have the opportunity, the chance, or the ability to buy wholesome foods, whole foods from the ground, from Mother Earth, or lean meats and lean fishes. But what they can do is start a garden in their backyard.
Yep.
There are cheaper ways for you to create and cultivate the things you need to better your brain health.
Right.
So you have to think about all the options. It may not be simple, but there's always a possibility if you look into the research of it all. If you understand how to make your life better through food.
Right. And
food is medicine. Food is medicine.
Food is medicine, 100%. And that's, looking back. So a lot of what you've gone through and your siblings, I find it amazing, by the way. I'm also adopted as well as my two siblings. So on top of the similar hairstyles, we have some great similarities there too. And so you have that you were, because of the way you were raised by your birth parents with, Coke and chocolate milk?
Kool-Aid, Coca-Cola, and sour milk.
And sour milk. That's clearly did affect your brain health. And so do you attribute that to where you ended off on that day at the Golden Gate Bridge?
So it played a big role in my self-destruction, but so did the bullying and hazing I got in grade and high school.
Right.
Kids treated me very poorly because I was part black. And poorly is an understatement. They were brutal, both physically and emotionally. I think those two things played a huge role in me leaping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Right.
Because even though I got better with Pat and Debbie and became a well-rounded kid and everything was going fine, when I had a high level of stress, my brain broke.
Right.
At 17, and then by 19, I leapt off the bridge. So they played a huge role. So when I go to schools and I talk to these kids who are struggling with their brain pain and who are being bullied every day, I say to them, I tell my story, and I say, when I was in grade school, they picked me up, turned me upside down, and placed me in a garbage can face first and told me that's what I was because I was part black. Is that okay? And you hear a resounding no, from the whole crowd, thousands of kids. And I say, when I was in grade school, they would get behind me, bend down, they would push me from the front. I'd crack my head open on the concrete beneath me and bleed. Was that okay? No. They would hold my head down as I would swing to try to get away, calling me little red N-word every day. Is that okay? And then no. And so you get this resounding movement of kids. And then you say, okay, so why is any amount of hazing, teasing, and bullying accepted or tolerated in any high school, grade school, or college around the country, or heck, as an adult in the workplace? Why is it tolerated? It shouldn't be. It has no place in our society. And I said, I go around the world, and I meet people who say that people cyberbullied them and cyberbullied their kids into dying by suicide. Writing online that you should kill yourself, you should feel disgusted if you've ever taken part in that.
Absolutely.
And then especially if the person dies.
Yeah.
Do you literally have no empathy in your soul to understand that that person was a son or a daughter to someone? That person mattered to an entire family? That person could have been the backbone or the spark of a family, and you just extinguished that spark for being petty so you could get a kick out of it? I don't want to blame people. I don't want to put that on someone, that weight on someone. But what I want to say is this. If you've ever been a part of bullying someone online, in person, or otherwise, stop.
Yeah.
Take a breath. Take a reflection on what you are doing. Hurt people hurt people. The only reason you're doing this is because you're going through hell at home and you're in denial.
100%.
Stop right now and understand that that person is of value and important to someone's life. And if you're writing online for them to take their life, you need to reevaluate who you are as a person.
Yes.
But we can all be 1,000 times greater than the worst thing we've ever done. Right? So you can turn this around right now. You can look at this screen. You can laugh at me. You can think this is one big joke. But people are dying left and right because of this stuff. Young people.
Young. And getting younger.
4-year-olds are dying by suicide because of bullying. How does a 4-year-old know to take their lives?
Yeah.
But they are. Don't have that blood on your hands.
Yeah, that's...
No. Take stock of your life and go like, wait a minute, what am I doing here?
It's definitely like social media, the internet, it's given that approval for them to do it easier from behind a keyboard. I can tell you part of it's also being on top of it as parents, if you've got young kids or even kids at all, to sit there and not let them sit in that bubble all by themselves, right? I know that, my son, my youngest one, had a YouTube channel, and one of his friends made some joking comments, and they weren't so joking. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I looked at that page all the time. I saw those comments, and it was like instantaneous message to the parents, message to the school. Yep. Like it happened. There was a turnaround within 48 hours.
Because you were on top of it.
You've got to be on top of it.
Look at all the parents that aren't.
I know.
All the parents that allow their kids to be vacant on social media, doing whatever they want, and have no knowledge of what's going on, what's transpiring. You have to have parental locks, parental controls on. You have to make sure your child is safe. And frankly, our brains don't fully develop until they're 26, right? So why does a kid who's not 26 have a social media account that can lead him or her to a dangerous situation for themselves, right? Why are we allowing that to happen? I get they're going to bug you like crazy for a phone. I get it. You don't have to allow them to. The social media giants, the tech giants that run social media companies, do not allow their kids to have social media.
Right.
That should be lesson enough for you right now.
So my wife is very big on this. When the kids were younger, they all had phones, and she has access to all of their accounts. Number one. Good. When my youngest one had his YouTube account, once we saw that what had happened with one kid, comments went off. because they all want to be a YouTuber. Nobody wants to be a movie star. They want to be a YouTube star. So they had turned around and, we got rid of comments. You have to be a lot more proactive. We can't just assume that none of this is happening. And then we can't assume that they don't have more than one account. They have more than, you may have that one account that you've given them, but they have more than one account. And just be on top of that, have that conversation. Again, it's that lines of communication. A good partnership with your spouse, with your partner, is communication. That also works going to your kids. Having that communication is key.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And having that communication and being transparent with your kids.
Yeah.
Like, I love you. I'm here for you. I get you want to have social media. Let's get you on the channels, but let's be protective of you to make sure you're safe. And if you want to be on these channels, here's what you have to do to keep me from taking it away from you. Right.
Right.
Because once again, I'm the parent, and as they say, parents know best. And you move along those parallels. Amazing.
Well, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I would really appreciate all you've done by coming and joining me today. If you can give it on top of your YouTube channel, all those links will be in the actual liner notes, so they're going to have access to you. You've got a movie you did?
Yeah, we've got a movie right now called Suicide: The Ripple Effect, available right now on Vimeo On Demand. So if you go to Vimeo, Vimeo, and then On Demand, and you type in Suicide: The Ripple Effect, you'll find the film. It's a rental, and you can rent it for, I think, 24 to 48 hours. And it's an incredible film. It won 6 international Best Film Awards, some Documentary of the Year awards. Was placed in, I think, 10 or 12 festivals. It traveled the world, 20 plus different countries, seen by over 2.5 million people. Please check it out. It helped about 600 people stay alive from suicide. 600 people claim that it saved their life. So let it help you.
600 lives saved.
Yeah, and then we're working on a new film called The Net, about the 87-year effort to raise the net at the Golden Gate Bridge, the 8 fights that failed, the current fight that's winning. And that film is going to come out hopefully by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. It's going to be a crowning achievement, a love letter to San Francisco, and a film that is one for the record books, one for the history books. And then check out the podcast, Hindsight's Podcast, HINESIGHTS. Some great interviews there with folks that have triumphed over incredible adversity all around the world. And please follow me on Instagram at Kevin Hines Story. At Kevin Hines Story, I want to have the conversation continue from today. If you need my support or moral support, please reach out. I'll be there for you.
Amazing. Well, Kevin, I thank you for that. And that's how I reached out to you originally, because I got to tell you, like I said, love all that you're doing. And you have been a part of my life, touched my life when I first read about it almost 20 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's literally, I think I read it in Rolling Stone or People or something. And it has stuck with me ever since. So you have made a change in my life, and I've told your story to as many people over those years. Before social media was a thing, I was a social media guy. I was telling everybody that story because it was so important for me to tell for you, because you had gone through something that people don't last from, people don't survive from.
Yeah.
And that one line of that, I have full regret. So, Kevin, I thank you so much for taking the time and wish you a happy new year. And again, I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Happiest of New Year's to you. I'm going to take a screenshot of us on the screen real quick. So a big smile. 1, 2. All right. Got it. Thank you, brother.
No worries. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. This will be out in about a week or two. I'll make sure that we get you connected there. And stick around for 1 second. I'm going to sign us off. This is Matt Tobe here with Kevin Hines. Rise Up, Stories of Recovery, Resilience, and Renewal. Thank you so much. And I will speak to y'all soon.
You're listening to Rise Up, Stories of Recovery, Resilience, and Renewal with Matthew Tobe.